Thank you, Andrew. I'll have to say that when Honora reached out and asked me if I'd introduce Steele, I said absolutely yes. Veranda has been on the coffee table where I grew up for a long time, and inspired by Veranda, we're currently redecorating. And so when my coffee table finally comes in, a veranda will be on it also. But Steele's design education started in her childhood in Atlanta, where she spent many afternoons with her artist mother browsing through galleries, antique stores, and fabric showrooms. After graduating from Williams College, where Steele studied art history and played on the varsity tennis team, she worked in Washington, D.C. as a reporter before returning to the South to pursue a Master in Arts and American History at the University of Alabama. She's a veteran of the design publishing industry, having served as the editor of Coastal Living, executive editor and style director of Country Living, and design editor of Southern Living and Coastal Living. You have a resume kind of like Wendy's. Steele serves on the board of directors for the Alabama School of Fine Arts in Birmingham, where she lives with her husband, who we're glad to have here today, 2 sons and dogs. Please welcome me in joining Steele.
Thank you so much, Key. I'm always a little bit nervous to hear my bio because I realize, like, oh, is it going too long? Is that too much information? But actually, you helped me because I was going to share some of that today, so now I can skip right ahead to that. Let me make sure, speaking of skipping ahead, let me make sure I've got my clicker. I also want to thank all of you Kiwanis members for having me today. This is an audience very different from my typical audience, so I'm a little nervous. Many of you have reached out to me, and I think I've shared that with you on a one-on-one basis, but we'll see how this goes. This is a very different type of presentation than I normally give. I'm usually talking about like fabric trends and paint colors, but today I'm going to try to put on my business hat and walk you through what it's been like to be in media for the past 20 years, which I hope to be inspiring and not too much of a downer note, but we'll see. Last but not least, to all of the organizations receiving grants today, thank you so much for the work you're doing. I have children in this area, and you guys are so inspiring. So anyway, on to a different and maybe a little lighter, but hopefully more, equally as fun topic. Okay, I'm Steele, as Keith said. I did not study journalism or magazines in school. I want to get that out of the way right up front. I have no formal journalism training. Everything I have learned on the job. And I think that's actually kind of important as we go through this. I did grow up in Atlanta. I then went to college at Williams, moved back to the South to go to graduate school at Alabama. And after working for 3 years as a reporter in DC and then going to graduate school, I then became an intern at Southern Living, which is really kind of where I did get my journalism training. So you may ask yourself, what does a reporter in DC covering healthcare and an intern in Southern Living have to do with one another? But you'll kind of see as we go along. Okay. So I've been the editor-in-chief of Veranda since October of 2018, when we moved the brand from New York back down to the South to Birmingham. So I thought it would help to give a little background in terms of how it started. Veranda was founded by Lisa Newsom in Atlanta in 1987. We also had verandas on the coffee table at my house, but I have to confess, we had more Southern Accents copies than veranda copies, which is kind of ironic now that I live in Birmingham and work at Veranda, but at the time lived in Atlanta and in the same neighborhood as Lisa. Lisa has 5 children and many grandchildren. She started Veranda out of her garage. She had been in publishing before. She actually worked on the sales and marketing side of Southern Accents. And she had taken them an idea that they didn't want to pursue, and so she decided she would do it on her own. And that scrappy, sort of do-it-yourself energy still lives on today at Veranda. But this truly is how it started. You see the first cover there on that slide, as well as our first book. Lisa remains a brilliant sort of media and publishing mind. She launched Veranda, focused on Southern style and lifestyle and decorating. She quickly, though, realized, since she ran the entire operation from edit to publishing to even newsstand distribution, that one of the most popular places where Veranda was just kind of flying off the shelves was at LAX in the airport. And so she kind of realized she was onto something, and that is how Veranda became a more national brand, even though we started kind of focused on the South. In 2002, 15 years after running Veranda, she sold it to Hearst, our parent company, and she had one mandate for them, which was, please never change the paper quality. And we have luckily been able to keep her mandate alive many, many years on. And for those of you who know and love magazines, you've probably seen the paper quality dwindle over the years, but not at Veranda. And I do think that kind of remains a point of differentiation. Lisa remains on our masthead. She is our editor emeritus, and she and I do still speak periodically. Oh wait, I went backwards. We don't want to do that. So that's how it started. Here's how it's going. We've moved from a very beautiful and sort of calm and elevated slide to a rather chaotic one here, but this is very illustrative of what Veranda looks like today. We are still 6 issues a year. We have over 1 million visitors to our website every month. We have a highly engaged, many millions of social followers. We publish 3 to 4 newsletters a week, depending on the week. We publish at least 2 books a year, and we are moving into the world of events. Rashida, I hope you and I can stay in touch after this. So as you can see, we are very different today than what we looked like when we launched. Okay, I keep going backwards. I do not want to do that. How did we get here? Okay, so this slide really sort of articulates 3 things that are 3 factors that are sort of affecting evolution in media. Really, all brands are kind of going through this, but I just wanted to touch on this because you'll see how Veranda is responding in the slides that follow. So these days, thanks to market forces and technological innovations, for example, I don't need to remind you of how addicted we all are to our smartphones, social media, and how AI is changing how we navigate the internet. But you'll be seeing brands moving from advertiser-supported to more consumer-supported models. You'll see a focus less on audience scale and more on niche passion audiences. And then less reliance on search in order to find readers, instead on cultivating a more personal and intimate relationship with our readers and creating and reminding them of their habits to come back to us. And so these are really shifts that all major brands are going through. We are as well, but I do think there are some key characteristics about Veranda that make us more naturally suited to survive and even thrive in this new environment. We've long been consumer supported. We love our advertisers as well, but we've long actually been a magazine that people buy and pay for, which isn't always the case. We do have a niche audience that we love and adore, and they're very passionate, and so thanks to that, we do have a very personal relationship with many of our readers. Nevertheless, we are still evolving our model as well. And so next, I'm going to be sharing with you kind of the 6 things we've done over the last 12 to 18 months to hopefully set us up for success in the future. Okay, first and foremost, we refined our brand mission. We wrote a much simpler and more concise mission. Veranda opens doors to a richer life. And importantly, we articulated 3 brand values. So we are welcoming, we are cultivated, and we are personal. And we really do use this as our sort of filter for all kinds of decisions, down to word selection, image selection, the types of people that we want to feature, the types of new ventures we want to explore. This has been hugely helpful to us. We look at it daily. Next, we defined our audience. We have always been we like to say that we've always been the design trade's favorite brand of all the design and decorating magazines there are out there. But we really are also well loved by design enthusiasts. And I think for too long, we were sort of separating them into 2 different camps, a professional camp and an enthusiast camp. And we've realized that our sweet spot is where those 2 crowds overlap. And there's lots of opportunity to engage with both segments of our audience in that sweet spot. So we created this as a visual, we're very visual people. We have to sort of put down what we do into a graphic in order to understand it. But you'll see here like a list of our different editorial tent poles. It's probably too small to read, but that may have felt more geared towards the trade or the enthusiast, and now really where the two circles overlap is where we are aiming most of our and spending most of our time. So here are some examples of how we've sort of leaned into bridging design enthusiasts and professionals in our content. 3 recent covers where we are featuring a designer or a design authority at his or her home in a very sort of intimate and first-person way. So we've got Lauren Santo Domingo, the artistic director of Tiffany Home, and her beautiful Hamptons home on your left. In the middle, we have our current cover. This is one of my personal favorites. This is Cordelia de Castellan, a French designer, in her garden, and she wrote a first-person essay for us about how a summer in the garden changed her life. She is the artistic director of Dior Bébé and Dior Maison, and she designed La Perouse, one of the most beautiful restaurants in Paris. If you haven't had a chance to either go or look at photos, it's fantastic. And then Marshall Watson, a New York-based designer, we actually featured his bedroom on our cover in March, and just really a beautiful and sort of intimate look at how he lives at home as well. A few more examples from our website. Here are, kind of new ways that we're working with designers. My favorite example to pinpoint is the 11 things that make your house look more expensive, according to designers, and 7 upholstery details that make your house look more expensive. Expensive and cheap, according to designers, always works for us. That's something that we learned last year, so we're leaning into that. And then a few more examples from our social platforms of, again, where we're really elevating the design professional as our celebrity, and people just love it. They feel like they can relate to them, they get sort of insider tips, and that has really worked for us. Okay, another exciting visual graphic here. The third thing we did is we developed a cross-platform strategy. And again, this is something that we'd been doing kind of all along, but really articulating to ourselves a unique focus for each different media has been super helpful for us. So starting with print, as that remains kind of core to our business, print is the smallest circle, and we define it to be sort of immersive, luxurious, and aspirational. And we cover all the things that you see listed there. Then you move on to our website, digital. Here, our sort of approach to the content is more news, service, and shopping based. We cover all the same things that we cover in print, but we add on some things like the royals or real estate, even some etiquette and financial advice. So we're really able to kind of grow and define our brand through a larger lens there. And then we really widen the lens on our social platforms, which we define to be engaging or emotional, as I was thinking about it this morning, entertaining, and very now. And here is where we'll even get into, say, opinions or pop culture or that sort of thing. As I was reviewing these slides this morning, I noted the editor appearances box in the bottom left. This may be the most important thing to note on this slide. I kind of wish that I'd put a photo of our team in place of that box, because you would see how very tiny we are, but we sort of outpunch our weight class by being here, there, and everywhere. I mean, we really are, we cover the country, we go to all kinds of events all the time, and it's part of what I think makes us Veranda, back to those brand values of being sort of personal and welcoming, and that's how we sort of maintain that. But it is not easy. You can ask Michael. Okay. Our cross-platform strategy. So here are some examples, again, from all of our various different types of content. One example here in this slide is kind of a hot mess, but we, knowing sort of how and where and when we want to tell different types of stories, we're now publishing things on social media, sometimes first, then on our website, and then in print. So for example, this was a designer's own home makeover. We chronicled it on social and on our website, and then months later we showed the final reveal in print. Another example of how we're kind of working in a new way thanks to this strategy is that we realized over the past couple of years that antiques and vintage content was just really, really popular online. And so because of that, we decided to take a risk and dedicate a whole print issue to antiques. And it was actually our best-selling issue for 2024. So that was great kind of learnings there. And then this is fun. I have a newsletter that I write twice a month that actually is just for the design trade called Trade Secrets, though we welcome enthusiasts and it's free to sign up, and we do not check your ASID card when you sign up. But I always ask a question of designers in this newsletter, and I get great responses back. I use those responses to create the back page for our print issues. It's kind of a design debate where we'll sort of pose a question. We'll show one side of answers, the other side of the answers. Then, after we create that and publish that, we publish on social media again. And so it's kind of this like ever-evolving circle and loop of the same information, but for different audiences. And it's a lot of fun, too. So that's been very successful. One final example, we developed this whole sort of digital-only franchise called Color of the Year. We know that color content does very well for us on our website as well. And so a couple years ago, we started naming our own Color of the Year. So the first year we did it, it was just for the website. The second year was last year, or this year, because it was the 2025 color. But it did so well that we ended up using one of the photographs that we shot just for the website for a print page. And now, as of this week, we are putting a whole color-themed issue to bed, kind of inspired by this digital idea. Okay. I think I'm on the right number here. The fourth thing we did is we invested in our products. Following our founder's lead, Lisa, we know that it's so important that we have this very beautiful, high-quality paper. It's such a tactile experience holding a magazine and reading a magazine. So, but that being said, while we'd never cut back on the paper quality itself, we had cut pages back as advertisers had started to move into other forms of media. So a couple of years ago, we actually built out a whole model for what it would take to put print pages back into the magazine. And we were able to do that. We've grown how many print pages we publish by double digits of percentage since when I started in 2018. We also increased the trim size by, I think, 1/4 of an inch vertically and horizontally, which these are like geeky things, but they make a big difference when you have the magazine open to a spread. And we started publishing more spreads. So you'll see, just a quick shout out to our team, the image on the lower right says atmosphere of exuberance, which you probably can't read, but it's like orange and hot pink. We shot that in Birmingham at Pepper Place in our studio. There's no natural light. The studio basically is kind of like a large, wide hallway. But big shout out to our photographer and stylist for creating this like beautiful environment. We started basically shooting more original photography on location and in studio, and I think it's made I know it's made a big difference. The advertisers have followed, and we've actually been able to grow print advertising since we did this, which has been great. We also invested in our website. We are publishing what we call premium digital guides these days. These are super in-depth. They're all expert sourced. They are original. You will not find this information anywhere else. Two major franchises are kind of how to do anything like a designer, so how to shop Palm Beach like a designer, or how to talk to your upholsterer like a designer. And then editor field trips, leveraging kind of the experiences that us editors are very lucky to get to do, how to do Wimbledon like a VERANDA editor, which I wrote recently, which is super fun. We have invested in our social products as well. We actually hired a social media editor this year, 2025. You would have thought we would have done that maybe 10 years ago, but here we are, entering the 21st century. And our engagement has gone up, no big surprise there, but we've started publishing more kind of social-first covers, which has been really fun. For example, Island Glamour, that was never a print issue, but we did a whole digital issue with a social cover that sold to an advertiser and was very engaging, so that was great. And that was just 6 weeks ago or so. And then books. This is always, as you saw on that very, very early slide at the beginning, been a core part of our DNA, the coffee table book. And we are now up to 2 a year. I hope we're not going to dilute our offering too much there. But we have started, so they're published by Hearst, but the creative director, myself, and our executive editor are very highly involved, and we're working with a local graphic designer that we've known for a long, long time, kind of leveraging that deep pool of Birmingham talent to bring these to life, and they are really, really beautiful. Okay, and then I think last but not least, we have invested in newsletters. What's old is new again, email, who knew? This is like, the platform of the future. But if you think back to what I sort of talked about with creating more of an intimate relationship with our reader, there is something that is very sort of intimate, personal, and habitual about email. So we have a kind of free weekly newsletter that you see on the left. I've added a little editor's note to that, kind of introducing it each week. Then we launched earlier this year a new newsletter called Style Diary, which if you're subscribed to our main newsletter list, you will also get this. If you're not subscribed, please do so. You want to get the Style Diary. This is coming from our 2 style and market editors, and there are just amazing, like travel, shopping, all kinds of recommendations in there. And then I mentioned Trade Secrets I launched about a year ago for the designer or design enthusiast audience. And those are all free to subscribe and where we're putting a lot of focus. So don't sleep on the newsletter. So the 5th thing we've done is we have doubled down on niche topics. Veranda's always been small, and I think, at the beginning part of this century, that may have been frowned upon or sort of, looked over, if nothing else. And suddenly that's becoming our strength. We speak to people's passions, and so that we've got kind of 5 or 6 of those that I'm going to quickly run through for you here. But these are topics that have largely been ignored by even some of our closest competitors, but we know our audience loves, and so we've kind of doubled down on them. First and foremost has been gardening. Y'all, I think probably half of our digital traffic comes from people who are interested in gardens. So this has been very, very important and critical for us. This is our, I think, 6th year. I think we started in 2020. We launched something called the World's Most Beautiful Gardens, where we work with 2 judges to help us evaluate submissions each year. This is a big sort of behind-the-scenes endeavor that we take on that maybe we should, video or something, because there's a lot of work that goes into selecting these gardens, and they're so beautiful. And anyway, that's been a lot of fun for us. And then again, like I mentioned, just tons of digital content as well. Preservation, this has become very, very important to us. It's important to me personally. We've done 2 preservation issues. You see the first one on the left here, Houses with History. That was actually our 2nd biggest selling issue besides the antiques issue last year, so proud of that. And we are actually being recognized by the National Trust at their 75th anniversary gala this fall for our work in this area, which is very exciting for me. Flowers, a perennial winner for us. We do flower arranging, we do flower growing, but again, what could be more beautiful? And this has actually always been in our DNA. When we went back and added pages back to the magazine a couple of years ago, we looked at some of the old issues, and it's funny, that first issue, Lisa I think she had an 8-page story all about flower arranging, and so we're not quite to that level yet, but you'll see like 4-page stories about flower arranging, really beautiful. Craftsmanship, this is a very big one for us. We are all about the handmade and celebrating these kind of old arts that, are becoming more and more rare, whether that's architectural products like what you see on the left, or the spread on the right is featuring a company in France that makes fabric out of horsehair. Not too many people doing that, and not too many people who can afford it, but if you can't, it sure is fun to learn about. Decorating, this may not feel as niche to you, but all of what you see here are, again, kind of that handmade, handcrafted art that we're celebrating, be it hand-painted wall coverings, passementerie and trimmings, marbled paper accessories. These are just a smattering of examples. Again, want to highlight that we're photographing these products in our studio with our team, and this has really helped us with our advertisers. They see a lot of value in shipping us their product and letting us kind of style and take an original photograph of it, because they like to see it through our editor's eyes, which has really been great. Textiles, I think that we probably cover textiles more than anybody else out there. I want to just highlight this spread on the right. This was a shoot that we did in February. It ran in our May issue at Drayton Hall in South Carolina. So we sent a stylist, a photographer, and her assistant, and the three of them, spent 2 days at Drayton Hall installing these beautiful vignettes, and just, very lucky that Drayton Hall allowed us to do that. But a big production that you're not seeing too much of these days. Okay, sixth and finally, we have evolved our consumer-supported model. I wanted to highlight print on this first slide, talking about evolving our consumer-supported model, because print remains really the foundation of our business. These are our 6 most recent covers. We have raised our newsstand price, which I'm excited about. I think we could have gone a little bit higher. We moved from $6.99 to $9.99. But I'm just happy that we've raised the price a little bit. And we have not really seen a fall off in sales. We still have a pretty strong newsstand business, which is great. We have also added, I don't have a visual to reflect this really, but we've also added a gate on our website. So now you can only see 2 articles for free before you sort of are asked to subscribe there as well. And then this slide here is really kind of the culmination of all of the 6 things that I've been talking about. This is where we're, kind of why we've done all that we've done. So the other side to evolving our consumer-supported model is we've launched a club, essentially. And you've seen a lot of media brands do this. We like to think ours is original. It's a design society. But we have 2 tiers, gold and silver, and I'm proud to say that we have the highest average revenue per user at Hearst, even though we're the newest membership, and probably the smallest. So it just goes to show that strategy of niche and small but really good, hopefully, is working. So again, through this you get premium digital content, virtual workshops. Importantly, though, you also get access to editors and experiences, which is where we're going. So we are just starting to dabble this year in more kind of event-like experiences, and I like to say this is bringing the magazine to life across a variety of channels. We did a member tour of the Kips Bay Decorator Show House in Palm Beach in March. That was really fun. In May, we did a sort of behind-the-scenes access to the Chelsea Flower Show garden designers through our Instagram, like Close Friends feature. And then currently, in June and July, we're doing a pop-up newsletter and video series all about summer in the garden. And then in September, we have our first kind of ticketed event at Bunny Mellon's Home and Garden up in Virginia. And we are selling tickets to it just to cover our own cost. We're not sort of moving into the actual ticketed event world, but just looking to engage more deeply with our premium subscribers. And that is all that I have. Questions? Of course. We're so lucky to be there. Well, you intimately know that we see a growth opportunity as more studio space at Pepper Place. But anyway, let's see. One of our most successful or most highly engaged populations is in markets that are just sort of less than major. So Atlanta is actually still our number one market. That's the biggest concentration of readers. But outside of Atlanta, I would say our readers are in places like Palm Beach, Darien, Charleston, these places that maybe don't have a giant design center. So I hope I'm answering your question the right way. But one big source of opportunity that we see is saying, New York, we love you, we totally love you, and we'll be there, but we're actually gonna spend the day in Darien instead, and we're gonna go to Westport, Connecticut, and we're gonna, take people shopping and really kind of, again, have those more personal, intimate relationships in small, typically, high-income areas or whatever. I would also say that our audience is maybe good deal younger than you might expect. In fact, I think our print audience is as young, if not a little bit younger than our digital audience, which is surprising. But people in their 40s, again, that's a great sweet spot for us. And we also are split more between male and female than you might imagine. But I do think, going back to age for a second, like, I want to get the Bama Rush Talk people in. What can we start doing, to engage that? I don't know. I think that's like a great opportunity for us while still staying core to our brand. But anyway, did I answer it? That was a rambly answer to your question. Susanna. Thank you. It was so nice to have a Hursty in the room. Yes.
Because they had you there.
Yes.
So that might be just an interesting story for why you're in Pepper Place.
Yes.
Why you're able to maybe do more of what you're doing, you have to spend all the money, you have to spend it anyway.
No, thank you for, and I could and probably should have done maybe 10 slides on that topic, but thank you for the question. I have to give a lot of credit to Hearst for having the vision to move certain brands out of the Hearst Tower. The Hearst Tower is an incredible place. I'm so lucky that I get to go there plenty of times throughout the year and visit. And I can imagine it would be an invigorating place to work as well. But not every Hearst brand and business needs to be there, and Veranda is a prime example of that. I think going back to those brand values, again, we're welcoming, we're personal. We need to do something different. We need to be, again, in those kind of just off major markets. And I think that people here live the life that or aspire to live the life that we're, kind of selling and championing in the pages of our content and magazine and website. So also, Hearst had a great vision in knowing that there is a deep, deep pool of editorial talent here. And this, I have to give credit to our competitors over at Southern Living and beyond. Many of us have had great training there and gone off to do other things. But I will also just, while giving them a little credit, note that, only about half of our staff and the staff of Country Living, which is the other Hearst brand that's here, came from homegrown or whatever. We've been able to recruit a lot of people here, which has been really, really wonderful. We sell our quality of life. Again, these are sort of lifestyle media content creators. They want a front porch. They want to be able to have a dog. They want to be able to cook on the weekends. They want to be able to go to the farmer's market. So again, we're just able to live that life, and it took her some time. They first moved Country Living, actually was part of that move as well. That made great sense. A brand called Country Living does not need to be in a 45-story, office building in New York City. And then it took another 5 years to move Veranda, but I do think Veranda was the next right choice. So again, Susanna, did I answer your question? Yeah, it's been, there is some freedom to that, and some trust that goes along with that, and some schlepping as well. If they say we need to see you tomorrow, they'll see me tomorrow, whatever. But we've been very lucky that, and they've come down here too, and obviously they know you, and the other slide I didn't put in was the closer collaboration between television and other divisions of the company, which is something that our leadership, kind of a shared leader that Susanna and I both know, is really championing at the moment too. So hopefully there's more opportunities there. But if you don't know, and you probably do, but if you don't know, there really is a depth of talent here, and it's not just food people. There's home design here, there are copy editors here, there are photographers here, creative directors. There's really just a wonderful pool of talent here. I personally think it makes Birmingham a more interesting and rich place to live, so I'm very grateful to that.
Steele, can you talk about AI? When you think about AI generated content and
Yes.
how good it's really getting, so how are you guys thinking about that? And then just in the industry, are you thinking about your competitors? Are they going to start using more AI generated content, whether that's the words, the pictures, or the videos? When I think about your cross platform strategy,
Yes.
I got to imagine it's going to be impacted in the next few years, if not already.
No, for sure. And I welcome the question. I was prepped for the question by a friend in the back. So I've been giving it some thought. But I would have been giving it some thought anyway, because we talk about it at work all the time. We are using AI. We are not using AI to create content at this point. We have a company policy against that. I reread it this morning to be really, firmed up in my answer here. But we think that trust among our reader and audience is the most valuable thing that we have. I can talk about good paper quality and great photographs all day long, but the reader trust is the most important thing that we have. Again, our brand values, I've said it once, I've said it 10 times now, but we're personal, we're welcoming, and we've got to have that trust. And so our policy is not to publish a photograph or an article that has been generated by AI. Now, we are using AI in certain ways to become a little bit more efficient here and there. And even for some sort of, I would almost call it brainstorming feedback. I get a little nervous about this. I mean, it's like, the policy is as clear as mud, as they say, but we are using it, and I think that we would be remiss, anybody probably in this room would be remiss not to be experimenting with it and sort of figuring out, how it can help us, in our jobs and in our fields. I was listening to a podcast this morning actually about how we're still trying to figure out exactly where the human engagement and involvement with AI can be. But for us right now, what we're very clear on is it will not be writing stories for us. We will not be publishing images that are generated by AI. But we do use it. Like the other day, here's a good use case. I mentioned that I ask designers questions and I get answers. And the good news is I get a lot of answers. Sometimes it's like 16 pages of single space text. So I asked ChatGPT, with whom Hearst has a content relationship with, to organize the content for me, and it was much quicker. Now, I have to go back and check it to make sure that, when they say that designers like the color red, let me see, but that was a really sort of helpful, useful way for me to get that article ready to go much faster. I wrote it myself, but it organized the ideas for me, which was super helpful. Hope that helps.
I hate to cut you off, but we're at time. Thank you
Yes,
so much.
thank you.
Awesome. Steele, thank you so much. It was really a fascinating presentation. We're thrilled you're in Birmingham, so thank you for insisting that Hearst keep you here. And we look forward to seeing all that's to come with the brand and really exciting stuff. So thanks again. In appreciation of your time, we're making a donation to your charity of choice, the Alabama School of Fine Arts. So thanks again. All right. All right, Kiwanians, hope again you will join us next week for our program at the Lyric. We're looking forward to that. Don't forget to RSVP today if you have not done so already. The link is in your newsletter. And then our speaker lineup continues through the rest of the summer into August and September. Cynthia Crutchfield, CEO of Innovate Alabama. Sid Trent, Chancellor of the University of Alabama System. Justice Sarah Stewart from the Alabama Supreme Court. Daryl Taylor from Airbus. Following that, we'll have the Business Hall of Fame. Then we will finish up the year with Bill Poole from the Director of the Alabama Department of Finance. Keith Pennington from UAB Medical Center West. John Turner from Regions Bank, and then I think we have one or two more spots at the very end that we're still working